Good evening to all. And that subject, data democratization, it's a very demanding nowadays. Since long, we heard that data is a new oil, right? So to have a speed of the data traffic requirement is very huge and massive. Nowadays, every user have a different requirement. Suppose he comes with a one requirement. As soon as you ready or you developed a program or a report or anything, all of a sudden the very next moment or a very next meeting, he require the other data. I mean, so that is a big problem for all of us and manufacturing industries and all. So just last demo what we have in this forum, that someone has mentioned like a 275 z zettabyte by 2025, a 55% of a dark data what we have. The dark data is almost no use in the organization. That is what they are referring. So to cater this, you should know where is your inventory, data inventory lying. I mean, uh, up till now, all the industries, manufacturing, whether manufacturing, pharma, any industries, they are doing a data. I mean, they are having a data in a silos. I mean, department have their own data bank. I mean, so as a board meeting or as a management meeting, whatever it may be, there is no single source truth of the data. That is a problem for all. And for data democratization is empowering and enriching the employee to achieve more by smart way to retrieving the data. So to eliminate this dependency from, I mean, a IT department or a EDP department or a MIS department. So in a past, generally, all the required data to be fetched or to be controlled by one in the, I mean, other department. I mean, IT or electronic data processing department or a MIS department. But nowadays, this is not true. Everyone needs a good data, handsome data, and a fast data, because the speed of the data traffic requirement are very huge and very massive. So this is the uncertainty of proper data threat is a decision making. So suppose if you want any decision making meetings you have, and if you have a don't have a proper data ID, so that will be a very what we call it's a slow decision making process what we call it, and it's very dangerous to very growing industries and all that. Now I would like to ask Mr. Venkatadri, sir, you are a very great and rich experience in a manufacturing industries. Uh, can you just let us know how it is accessible to data via data lake, enabling a democratization of data, and how it is relevant to a manufacturing sector? Sir, please.
Thanks, Mr. Biren, and thanks, Aditya, for this. I work in Tata Chemicals, and till about a month back, I was the Chief Innovation and Digital Officer for Tata Chemicals. So I've been involved in many of the digitalization exercise that we have done in our companies. I'll just give you a quick background, and see, most of us. Many industries like BFSI and all have been very, very ahead of the digitization curve. So where people have known the value of data because there's a lot of information that keeps flowing, and people have been, companies in the BFSI have been able to set up good systems to capture data, analyze data, and then throw out meaningful analytics of that. Now, when we take a manufacturing industry from where I come from, in manufacturing, the whole concept of actually putting out data is a recent phenomenon. I would say it is hardly 10 to 15 years it has started becoming prevalent. If you take many of the manufacturing setup, there are boilers, there are pumps, there are gears, motors. Now what happens is that each of these equipments run on their, they run. There are meters that are put up, and some human being actually goes up to there and sees how the meter is functioning, what is the pressure, what is the flow. They look at it in bits and pieces. Now what has happened is that the whole transformation that came in when IIoT became an easy thing to install, and it's also cost effective. So all these equipments, the industry has started putting in and capturing the IIoT, through the IIoT, the data virtually on a minute to minute, second to second basis. So what this has happened is that what earlier a human being would go and see on a monitor or on a indicator at periodic intervals turned out to be a complete, where one gets to know about it any second of the day. Now what happens is that by putting up these IIoT devices, we've actually started throwing out a lot of data. Now the point that is very very critical in all of this is that you are now generating tons and tons of data. What do you do with it? Now what are the challenges that have happened in the manufacturing industry is that this data that was getting churned out, first of all, uh, they were all disjointed. What used to happen was there used to be some data that used to come from a plant, say for example, a power plant, which feeds into, a processing plant, which then feeds into, a downstream plant. Now each plant used to churn out data, and there was no integration between all of them. So these IIoT devices used to throw data, and it used to go and sit. There used to be some set of, people used to sit in a control room for that particular plant and look at the information. Now there's not much of integration that was happening across the plants. That's one big thing that was becoming a problem. So what has started happening is that people have realized that if we get to analyze data and link up the data between what is happening in, the upstream plant and the downstream plant, you can actually predict what is happening in the downstream plant. So the whole concept started coming about. How do you link up these disparate bundles of data that are coming up? That is one. Now obviously I will address that. How do you actually handle this integration which is getting thrown from various places? That is one critical thing. The second important thing that also started happening is that when you get these tons of data, what do you do with the data? So clearly, then that's the time when people realize that one can get into using data analytics to be able to predict and say what is likely to happen in the future by using this data. And I can give a number of examples that we've been able to use in our company. What we have been able to do is that, for example, you take pumps and motors and all. All of us know that pumps and motors do have a breakdown periodically, and you can actually get to know in advance if a motor or a pump is going to fail. Now, if you all go back in history, there used to be a concept called breakdown maintenance, that the pump would fail, break down, and then you replace it. The breakdown maintenance then shifted to something called planned maintenance, where people used to say, let's take up a shutdown once in 1 week, 2 weeks, 10 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, depending upon the type of equipment. So the whole thing went into what is called as planned maintenance. Then the whole thing that started happening, the whole concept that came in was condition-based monitoring started happening, where that's where people actually started saying that if a pump is going to break, you can get to know about it when the temperature goes up. So you can actually monitor the temperature of that motor or something and say that this is likely to break in the immediate. That was the third wave that came in, which is the condition based monitoring. What has happened is that this is like almost saying that you recognize half an hour before that the person is going to get a heart attack, and then you rush. But what has happened now is that people have realized that you don't need to wait to see that the temperature has gone up, say 10 degrees above normal, and then say it is going to break in the next half a day. But by studying the data, now you're able to say well in advance, maybe 10 days in advance, 15 days in advance, you can say, you can predict that this is likely to happen. So the concept has become that we have now moved into what is known as predictive maintenance, predictive breakdown. So, and this is something which has come about from the whole concept of data analytics, which is emanating from the IIoTs, which is throwing out data. So we've actually created models to be able to actually predict when a pump or a motor could fail, and then take action well before that. What has also happened is that, one, it obviously reduces the need to take a shutdown. And when a breakdown takes place, obviously the costs are higher because many a times you have to replace it. It's broken probably at a state at which you cannot repair it. You have to replace it. And when there is a breakdown, people rush in. There are X number of people who have to go and get it out, replace it, production stoppage, etc., etc. When it's an unplanned way, this way you're able to actually predict well in advance and then keep changing the various things that you need to do. So that's another area that we've been able to see a lot of saving. What we have also done is that we've also looked at the whole area in our manufacturing. In manufacturing, in processes, what we have done is that we've there are various process parameters, and especially in a batch wise, in a batch production, what you notice is that batch to batch there are variation. And the reason why you don't get the full output is that every operator is different, and the conditions keep changing, and the operator, by his or her best judgment, takes a view on what parameters have to be changed. Now, what is it that we've said is that, let us look at by taking data over the last say 6 months, and then find out what is it the best batch that has come through. Say we call it a golden batch. You say, what is a golden batch? For the golden batch, which is the best efficiency that we have got, what are the parameters that have led it to happen? Temperature, pressure, flow, etc., etc. And then see that, can you put in a system which kind of advises the operator, saying that you are moving away from the golden batch. If you change the pressure, you change the temperature, you change the flow, make these changes, and you can make sure that you come back to your golden batch parameter, wherein you try to get every batch as your best batch. So this is something which we have been able to do, and that's actually helped us enhance our the efficiency that we are getting from our plant. Now, so these are two big examples where we have been able to do so by leveraging IIoT in manufacturing, throwing out a lot of data, using data analytics on top of it. And then this has actually led to data democratization, because what earlier used to happen was some senior person sitting somewhere was the person who used to come and say that this pump is likely to fail. Today, these instrument gives the info in the operator who is on the shop floor right then and there that there is a problem. So the data is available to the person who will set it right, rather than 3 levels is boss. So that way the data is also got completely democratized, and these are some of the big opportunities that we have seen of data analytics, as well as in making data democratized.
Yeah. So you are saying, I mean, identify the right challenges. I mean, a manual and a complex process for a data gathering, for a right implementation of data democratization, right?
Yes, sir.
So, what I feel, implementation is a attention, then time, then presence, and then energy. Attention is user requirement we need to know. Otherwise, user says 4 5 things, and suppose you are giving a 10 things, that is a more problem for organization as well the user also. Timely manner is a proper planning for implementation of this, and the presence is a process. You derive a process like 4 5 silos data will be combined or will be democratized in a single one, that is a presence. And the energy, suppose you give it a single source of single truth of a data, that data gives a power to user for a better decision making, right?
Yeah. Mr. Biren, you also got huge experience in the data democratization. I know I would love to hear, your examples of how you've been able to leverage this data democratization in your organization and in your experience.
Okay. So we have implemented data democratization like initially we are having 4 5 silos. I mean that's production planning department have their own data. Then the costing department there have their own data. Then the marketing, then the purchase and all that. So as and when this production meeting or a management meeting, they all have come with their own data. I mean Excel and all that. I mean so we implemented a solution like all the data from the SAP. We have a SAP S/4HANA, and we fetch a data from all the sources. I mean, the manual Excel work and everything to a single source. And every day, every 7 o'clock or management having a same dashboard with the production head as well the finance CFO and all that marketing head and the costing head and all. So we are fetching the data from the sales as well the finance purchase and the production shop floor also. Production shop floor we are doing MRP based on this democratization. Initially we are having a Excel based MRP and all that. So nowadays, with the help of this tool and then the SAP's MRP function, we are having a single truth of the data and MRP will run, and then we are having what we are retrieving. I mean, what is the desired data we are having this. So nowadays, this democratization is a crucial or critical or importance to the business. So in my view, it's a very important to have this because the silos data are not good for any organization who are going to have this intelligent organization or agile organization, what we call it. Like we want a smart factory, smart operation, and smart functionality facility, what we call it. By implementing this democratization, we are uh, going with this intelligence organization nowadays. So sir, can I ask one more question to you?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. How it is helping to provide a transparency to all manufacturing operation within the organization to facilitate data-driven and the evidence-based decision.
See, that's a very very good question. See, what actually happens is that earlier most people, I would say most of our organizations, including mine, all of us, we would have an assistant. We would tell that assistant compile the data, give it to me, and that gentleman would, go into the system, pull out data, compile it, put it into a particular chart, which is easy for me to understand. Like that, what used to happen was every person had a set of people whose job was to generate reports and give and and obviously what used to also happen is that so that obviously had created a set of people whose job was only to create reports. That is one. The second thing is that every person wants a different report. So for example, a sales manager one would want a report in one manner, sales manager two would want it in another manner. So every person would want it differently, and people were trying to keep making all of this. Now that's one. The second thing is that, like you said, that the data, typically doesn't get integrated. Like you rightly said, there would be a lot of arguments between the production guy and the planning guy and the sales guy, saying what is right stocks. Now, is the stock 10? Somebody will say 10. Somebody will say 11. Somebody will say, oh, you didn't take the WIP.
True.
There used to be a lot of these. These are all practical issues that one has seen because of not creating the right infrastructure. So what we've also embarked and been doing is that how do we create a single platform where all data flows into it, everybody enters into it once, and that data is then people are able to take it out. So one that has happened is that there's nothing called a production view of data and a planning view of data. So it's now everybody is just one data. That is one. The second important thing that it has also created is that anybody wants, it's the whole concept is also self-service. Now, since the data is now available in a form and, it is available that anybody can kind of go ahead, open up, there are these layers of analytics systems that have been put in, people are able to play around and ask questions, say that, what is the last 5 year trend, where I have got the best realization with which customer, etc., etc., which was my batch in the last 3 years, where I got the best output, where did I get the less. Now, what has now happened is that this is something which has now started helping the senior management get the solutions based on their desired question. Now, earlier they would actually throw the question to somebody. Somebody would take whatever 2 days to churn out the data and then come back. And if, for example, I needed a little different, then that person would again go back for another 2 days. With this, what has effectively happened is that, that's where the beauty of it is, that creating a data lake, or a place where all the data is put in. On top of that, have an analytics layer and a visualization layer. So people can actually, each of us can keep asking questions one wants it, and from the bottom, things are start kind of getting thrown out. So that is something which we have been able to do. And now everybody sees the same data, whether it's the MD or the person who is at the lowest level, everybody can see the same data. So that's how it has helped in a big manner in democratization. Mr. Biren, I have a question with you. Now, you've done a wonderful job of integrating the whole system. Now, the way I look at it is that, obviously to be able to democratize data, there are, as I would say, there are three critical success factors for making it happen. One is obviously the technology part of it. Which tool do you put in to be able to capture the data? The second important part of it is the processes, that because of putting up this, one has to change the way one is working. That's the second thing. The third most important thing, and that's the question that I would ask, is the whole cultural mindset. Now, what happens is that earlier, a set of people whose job was to analyze data and give it to the senior management, and that is where their power was. Some people owned, or kind of owned is a wrong word, control the data analytics. Now by day and when you democratize it, that set of people who kind of control the data have lost that power. Now anybody who has the necessary authority, I'm not saying everybody will have authority to get into every data, but now they don't need that thing. Since you've done that very well, how did you handle that portion of it, which is the technology, the second is the process, and the third is the culture? I would really love to hear, and I'm sure our audience would also love to hear from you the transformation that you have done.
So technology, as you mentioned last also, that maintenance of a plant, we have implemented like each and every equipment with this, their life. I mean, how many years we are going to have this equipment and all that. Suppose very breakdown is continuous by this lifespan. So we are predicting like this machine or this equipment needs to be changed or repaired very well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first thing. So the last one, I will come to a second one also, but then the last one, the change management is a big role for the people. So now everyone knows and everyone doing a heavy transaction in the system, whatever the system they have. But then the transaction data to a transformative data, we convert it, that helps a user for a better decision making. So user are very nowadays uh, very useful to have this systems and all that. Earlier they are saying, "Arey baba, ये सब entry करने से क्या फायदा?" Likewise. So this is the thing. And now the process wise management also have a dashboard for all this dashboard for the all module and all. I mean SAP, we have a production planning, costing, finance, marketing, quality and everything. So by going to a management for the approval of now what we call a inventory or a asset and all that, management before they are coming to a management will aware for the process and all that. So for decision making, I mean from management also, as well the SBU head, I mean the business head, I mean a plant maintenance head or a production head, It's very easy, and they are on a same single truth of the data.
Mm.
That is the process, what I am calling it. And by implementing this, the organization will move one level up from the previous levels. I mean, a previous level, old level is a before implementation of this. Many people are. It's a time consuming because there is a silos data with all department and all that. I mean, costing department have their all costing and all that. Production department have their equipment life and the number of sorts they have produced up till now and all that. So like all department have a different, but now then there is a single truth of the data, so process will be a very fast. Can I answer your question, sir?
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Uh,
uh, uh, uh, Aditya, we have enough time or
uh,
Aditya?
Yeah, Mr. Biren.
Aditya, how long do you want us to carry on? I mean, the
Yes.
two of us can carry on for the next 5 hours also.
Sure.
So we have 6 minutes remaining, Mr. Biren.
6 minutes remaining. Okay, great. So Mr. Biren, I'll ask you a question. I mean, I'll share a thing which kind of always bothers most of us. In my earlier role as a CIO, I used to face that, and I'm sure you also face that in your role, and I'm sure others also would be facing that. See, one of the critical things in all of this is that how does one justify the value that comes out of this investment? Because one of the critical thing is that everything has to show a return. So if we put in whatever 3 crores of investment, 4 crores of investment on this,
Sir,
uh,
I
yeah,
want to answer this. So in a finance, there is a tangible figure always available. But in a technology, I don't think so tangible ROI can be available to this. Only the thing is a user satisfaction and the process speed up. I mean, agility is the key factor to get a ROI, or what we call it. It's a successful or it's a worth it to have. That is the way I am saying.
no, brilliant. Actually, I fully agree with you on that, both in terms of, rather than look at it from a purely financial perspective, but to look at it as time to market. Because
True.
I've seen that, when a company is able to turn around and come out with a new product, or come quickly with a new innovation, much faster than the competition, that's the time when the value of doing this comes out. And I mean, I have seen a few companies which have done this in the sales and marketing end. They've been able to come out with new schemes and market intervention at a much faster rate compared to some other company, because of this whole thing about it. And similarly, the whole area of maintenance cost reduction, that's something which I have seen companies have been able to reduce their. One is the breakdown outage, second is the maintenance cost. Both of it are also tangible benefits that comes through. But I do agree that today the whole concept of digitalization and data and analytics are more also to survive in the market. I mean, it's like nobody today asks, do you need a SAP or an ERP system?
Right, sir. It's a basic requirement for all of us.
Yeah, it's a basic requirement for all of us. So I think that's a good way, is to look at it from a turnaround perspective, and the ability to be agile. I think that's a great view that you are shared. And of course, like I said, we've also seen in some areas, we've seen some benefit out of it, but not in all the areas in financial terms.
Yeah. Sir, thank you so much, and a great insight from your end. I mean, we all have a good learning by manufacturing industries, what you have explained and communicated to us. Thank you. Thanks a lot from all of us.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Biren. Thank you.
Thank you. Aditya, is any question, anything?
Yeah, Mr. Biren. So any of the delegates would have any queries for Mr. Biren and Mr. Venkatadri? Okay, great. So we have questions from Mr. Mukund KS again. How is data from S4HANA being pulled? Is there a DL created or any challenges faced? Should organizations first create DWH, then DL, or how to embark on DL?
So as far as there is a data warehouse we have implemented, and then the other one is we are using SQL servers for staging. I mean a staging server what we are using it.
Okay. The next question is from Mr. Jana Prasad. Uh, Mr. Jana Prasad asks how to recognize that an organization has a data democratization problem.
Sir, can you?
Yeah. How do you recognize that there is a data democratization problem? That's a brilliant question.
Yeah,
I would.
indeed.
That's a very, very good question, because we keep talking about data democratization without defining what is democratization. See, I would put it as in multiple ways. When I would say that there is no data democratization, first of all, the first most important thing is that the person who requires information to take a decision, is the data available to him or her at the time when he or she needs it? I would simply put it as that. I think is the simplest. I'm not getting into a technical definition of data democratization, which I'm sure, but I would say the practical way is that when the person who wants to take a decision has the information at his or her fingertips at the time when he or she needs it, that is the time when you are truly democratic, data democratic.
One more thing, unstructured data to converted data structure, I mean, unstructured data to a structured data will be the ideal one for a data democratization.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Mr. Viren.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one question coming down from Mr. Rehan Khan. Mr. Rehan Khan asks, how important is having an MES platform for a CEO or an IT head?
Mr. Viren, you are the right person for it.
Can you come again, please? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. So the question was, how important is it having an MES platform for a CIO or an IT head?
MES platform. What is that MES?
Yeah, this was posed by Mr. Rehan Khan. How important is having an MES platform for a CIO or an IT head?
Yeah.
MES.
I've also not understood what is MES. What can
he write it down, or can he?
Sure. So you can answer the question. So Mr. Biren and Mr. Venkatadri will answer to Mr. Rehan's question on the platform itself. So now moving on to the next question and last question from the Q&A. How can we identify authentic data? Yeah. So how can you identify authentic data, especially from unstructured data?
So authenticate data. Suppose, is there any company's owned equipment or a instrument that will be the authenticate data? Like a marketing people, they are using a mobile for personal use as well the company's work also. But then that unstructured data like a WhatsApp and all that, suppose they are having a structured data, and through the company's what we call a network and all that, that will be the right data for democratization. Sir, do you have any other?
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think that's a very nice explanation.
Okay, great. So we have one last question. That is from he's an anonymous user. How do you convince CFOs to commit for technology investments where you directly cannot showcase ROI, etc., before the start of the project?
That is what earlier also I said. For a finance, for a marketing, and for a production, there is a tangible ROI there. In a technology, in a IT field, we don't have a ROI directly tangible to anything. Uh, Sir,
Yeah, see, I will put it this way that see, it depends upon the type of project and the investment. For example, if we are putting up the solution is for manufacturing, there is a possible way of measuring it by improving yield, reducing downtime, better efficiencies, better power efficiency, better steam conversion efficiency. Those are things which are possible. That is one. It is a bit difficult when we get into systems in sales and marketing. I'm trying to start from the simplest to the most difficult. I'm going in that direction.
true.
If you take sales and marketing, it's a bit difficult. How do you say that? Because now you have a very good data system, you've been able to get a better business out. There are some areas where you're able to, even within sales and marketing, for example, turnaround time, like Mr. Biren said, is a very good way to show that, earlier, if, for example, I needed to create, if my competitor comes out with a scheme, they reduce the price. Now I need to react. Now, how much time do I need to react to the competition? It's a very good measure of availability of data and the ability of having a good system which pulls in data, and you have a proper warehouse where the data is there, analytics, and then throw it out. So there you're able to kind of measure data. That's one thing in sales and marketing. Second thing is that for example, by analyzing your past data to say that as and when I made, independent of competition, if I made a price change, have I, if I drop the prices by 5%, have I always gained volumes or I have not gained volumes? So these are some ways in which you can measure the sales and marketing part of it. When you come to investments in HR, for example, somebody can say, should you have an HRMS system, which actually all data is available in one simple system where what people say is from cradle to grave, or people from the time when a person applies to a company to the time when that person post-retirement gets his pension. If you want to get the full information at one point of time, so there you can measure it as how much of time and effort it takes for the HR department to answer any query, or, for example, you want to assess, for example, your next increment cycle, you want to find out how much increment you should give. If you have a proper HRMS system, half a human being can get it done within half a day. Whereas, in the earlier time, a person would sit with Excel sheet, work out this, that, etc., and take days. That's the third important part. If you take the area of finance, I would actually say in finance, as the CFOs, there are primarily two areas where they look at benefit. One is in faster closing. For example, today there is a need to close your books as quickly as possible, as close to what it is. Gone are the days when you could take 15 days, 20 days, 30 days to close your books after every quarter. Today, CFOs want it to get closed ideally in one day. One day is difficult, but maybe in 3-4 days. So one is the closure, that how fast can you do your closure. The second important part of it is in terms of control system lapses. That's the second important thing, which when you have an integrated system with a very good data warehouse and data democratized, the number of times things have gone wrong in terms of control systems, getting into a problem with your audit committee, you are able to have less audit related or control related problems. So these are two big benefits which technology can provide. Chances of fraud, people walking away with your money, etc., etc. So these are the two benefits that the CFO can see. So this is the way I would look at it, as different functions. The metrics are very different. Not for all of them, you cannot put it in money terms. For some people, it is money. For some people, it is speed. For some people, it is, say, for example, ability to sleep peacefully, that there is nothing going wrong in the control system. So that's how I would put it across. Of course, when you're able to do things faster in terms of closing, when you're able to close within 2 days instead of 20 days, you're also saving people. the people who are sitting and doing that closing activity can do something more productive. So of course that manpower cost is not always a big delta. The value that the company gets because of better decision making is far more important than saving in manpower.
Only
so
the
this is how I would put it as
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
My last is to convince a CFO or a management, you need to have explain, like, before this implementation, this will take almost 4-5 days to conclude, and after implementation of this will conclude by a 1 day. As you rightly mentioned, that finance, balance sheet, and all that. Like in a finance, that hire to retire and the succession, all gather in a single system, that will be help. And I think a CFO or a top management will convince with your proposal and everything. That's all.